Welcome to Friday Night Lights Overtime. We do this every week at about 10:45, live on YouTube and KCRG.com. Jack Lito joining me, and let's get right to a few scores we didn't get earlier tonight.
Yeah, a lot of good games across the state. We start with some bigger schools. Waterloo West, Dubuque Hempstead. It's Hempstead in a close one, and then flip the score 35-28. It's Western Dubuque beating Wahlert. Western Dubuque, on this program, we watched them beat West Delaware. So I think that score stands out as these guys up in Epworth might be the king of Dubuque County. But that's just for now. Moving on to the slightly smaller classes, I think there is where we had some of our biggest games. Dyke New Hartford 9-7 over West Branch. That's got to stand out to for you because West Branch starts 0-2, but they're a much better team than an 0-2 team.
That's a pretty good game, actually. They didn't win the football game. They're very competitive.
Grundy Center, the state champs from last season, beating Applington Parkersburg in a top 10 matchup. And finally, some smaller schools again. MFL Marmac takes the win. So does Waco, the defending champ. Anything stand out for you there?
Waukon just a little bit down this year. Obviously, they've had so many great teams. There's going to be a time that you don't play as well. MFL Marmac, they're good.
They're fighting with Grundy Center for that top spot in 1A.
All right, let's talk about one of the most impressive wins tonight, I thought, was Benton Community beating Marion 38-7.
Yeah, Chelsea was at that game, and when she saw Benton, her eyes were wide open because how big they are. And Marion, they're a little bit more of a finesse team with some of their players. Benton, not a finesse team, and we've seen it year after year. There's Carson Bruns rushing in for a touchdown. We see it year in and year out. They play small. They don't play, what's the word? Not small.
It's power football.
Yeah, they play close to the line of scrimmage. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't work. These last two games have certainly worked, and that's their quarterback rushing.
And he's an athlete, too. Marion with a big win last week over Clear Creek Commander. That's why it kind of surprised me that this game got out of hand a little bit with Benton winning 38-7.
What Benton can do so well is they run the ball, and because of their well-conditioned dudes, on the defensive line, or on the offensive line, they could win games in the second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter with the rush.
Yeah, they got some D1 athletes, right?
They do. I believe they do.
Yeah, and we got a post-game interview.
We do have a post-game interview. Let's throw it over to Chelsea, who's with one of the stars of the game, Carson Bruns.
All right, guys, I'm here with Benton Community's running back and linebacker Carson Bruns, and this outcome, you're 2-0. How does that feel?
I mean, it feels really good. I mean, our guys have been working all year in the off season. We've been getting ready for this, and I mean, it feels really good to do it in this fashion too.
I mean, you guys kind of set the tone early on to march 80 yards down the field to get the score. No passes, all run game. What is that like?
I mean, I like it personally, but I mean, I got to give credit to the offensive line too. I mean, when those big guys do great up front like that, it makes my job a little bit easier.
We've talked a little bit about your offensive line. Just what do they do so well? I know they are huge, but what do they do so well on the field?
I mean, they're smart. They communicate. They know their assignment. They get their guy and they make a move.
Yeah. Defense on the other side of the ball. We did not allow a first down until toward the end of the third quarter. Did you know that?
No, I didn't know that. No.
When you hear that, what do you think of that?
I mean, you know, you're never really thinking about that, but that's kind of amazing. I mean, I know we have a good defense, and we'll be solid all year.
Looking forward to the rest of the season, what excites you about the rest of your schedule?
We got some tough competition, you know, people that are higher up in the ranks, and I'm excited to get after them.
You bet. Best of luck.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chelsea. And Jack, you were at the game of the night, Williamsburg and Xavier, and Williamsburg went up in class to play Xavier. They're the defending state champs, the Saints. Of course, Williamsburg did play for a title last year, but boy, what a football game it turned out to be.
Yeah, the fun thing about this great job is we see the first half and sometimes you miss the very, very end, but it's Williamsburg 21 and Xavier 20. Maybe the most surprising score of the day just because of how well Xavier plays year in and year out and how consistent they are. They don't blow leads, but they blew a lead, and that's just because of Williamsburg's really fight, and Kurt Ritchie coached a fantastic game. You see some highlights here. You'll see a little bit of Xavier highlights. Look, a 21-20 game to a 21-20 loss at home to a team like Williamsburg who could end up winning the whole thing isn't anything to scoff at. Here Williamsburg gets a sack. This is a very Kellen Cockrell is their quarterback, but they have a few wide receivers who are quite good as well. And I think Dwayne Schulte is going to give his guys a tongue lashing, but he's going to look back at this game next week and then maybe 6-7 weeks down the line and say, wow, we lost to a really good Williamsburg
and
team.
it was probably good for them. And these are two teams, they could both win state titles. They're in different classes.
I think they could, and they play a little bit differently. Williamsburg throws the ball a little bit more. Xavier did something a little bit different where they have Colton Beasler-Weber. He is their the running back of note. He's a little different than your I don't want to say typical, but let's say typical Xavier running back who is a little wider, a little shorter.
Yeah, he's a scat back and he catches the ball. Yeah,
catches the ball well.
Yeah.
They run a lot of toss sweep with him. So Xavier fans, I think you guys are going to be fine in 4A.
All right, let's move on. I was at the Tractor Bowl.
Tractor
tonight.
Bowl.
Yes. They play for a traveling trophy, which we have some video of there. It's right there with a John Deere on top of the tractor. Only in Iowa, right there.
Man.
Yeah. And Central City against Springville. Central City had that trophy. They won last year, and boy, they've got a really good team. That's Aiden Klosterman, who had a big game, scored a couple of touchdowns. I was impressed with Springville's fight early in this game, and they had to go to some trickery because they're playing a team that has more talent. And it worked. They were in it early, but then just too much talent from Central City, who lost a heartbreaker last week to Winfield Mount Union, another really good team. So they kind of took it out on Springville a little bit tonight, winning 44-21. But actually a pretty good football game, and I expect Central City is going to be there, and I wouldn't be surprised if they play Winfield Mount Union again in the playoffs. Jaden Hanson, that's scoring the touchdown there, veteran quarterback. They got most of their guys back from a really good team last year, and they're going to make a run in the playoffs this year.
Yeah, the Winfield Mountain Union game, that's a tough one, but that's another one you look back on in 5-6 weeks and say, well, if you're Central City, you lost the game to a really good team. Central City could run up the score, 44 there, but I agree with you. Springfield is a program that's been down the past few years. I don't think that they're going to stay that way in the next few years.
No, you can see the talent. They have some talent on their team.
It is coming up, and with Central City, they're really going to go through their quarterback, and you can say that about a lot of teams. It's a bit of a cliche.
He's also one of their best defenders. He comes up and
that's
rocks
8-man
people.
football, man.
Yeah.
But I love watching Jaden Hanson play because he is a great thrower and a great runner, and just whenever, even if he's down, backed up in his own territory, he's the type of guy that can kind of do everything and make a big play no matter where he is.
Another game that surprised me tonight, Liberty beat City High 41-14. It doesn't surprise me that Liberty won.
Yeah.
It surprises me that they won that big.
I don't know exactly what happened because I was not at the game, but it's just Liberty getting the talent that they I don't want to say they've been deprived of talent these last few years, but last year and this year it seems like it's gotten a little more talent rich.
Graham Beckman,
Liberty, and it's
that
Beckman.
guy, yeah.
Graham Beckman is a fantastic quarterback. He's just so smooth in the pocket, and he'll make a mistake or two. And here's that's Sam Keeter, by the way, number 10. I saw him block a punt last year against Ames. He does the exact same thing here. But Liberty's a well-coached team, and they're a much more powerful and strong team. They've got, like I said, when you have more participation, you have bigger guys, and you can do stuff like that where you can just run it from 5 yards out. That's not something Liberty could have done to City High a couple years, let's say 3 years ago. Last year they did it to City High. This year they did it to City High. And I think if Graham Beckman can kind of avoid the big mistake, look, Liberty's just a couple plays away from beating West last week and being 2-0.
Well, what does it say about West? That West was able to beat Liberty. I mean, come on.
How about that? These Iowa City teams, it might be a cat fight with one of them beating the other. It's just a question of kind of who has the horses and gets the injury luck to make it into the playoffs. I think with City West and Liberty, I don't know if either one of them stands out as one of those top teams in their respective classes, but I think if
they could be playoff teams.
They could absolutely be playoff teams and make a run at it, and all three of them have the talent, or at least one big talented person that can kind of be the winter wonder per se, of just like be a game breaker. The defense is just afraid of them.
All right, let's talk about a game that happened last night. Jefferson shutting out Marshalltown to raise their record to 2-0. They had lost 26 straight games coming into the season. They had lost to Marshalltown last year 48-0, but they turned the tables. Yeah, that was Houston with a great stiff arm. Just so much fun to watch this turnaround. And, I mean, they've worked so hard. I watched them at the 4 a.m. practices. They've dedicated themselves to Coach Ed Miles in the weight room. They have a terrific coaching staff, and they're believing in that coaching staff. And that was the Sherman tank scored there, and he was great on defense last night. But they've got a complete team. They really do. And they could start the season off, if you look at their schedule, 5-0.
How about that? Their quarterback's Jeremiah
Pfeiffer. Yeah.
That dude has a cannon. And what I like about Jeff is they've always had the buy-in. Like the players who are there at practice are absolutely buying in. It's just they haven't quite had the talent yet. And when you do, now they finally do have the talent.
And they got some bigger guys because of the weight room.
Yeah. And the coaching staff. I mean, we were at the Athlete of the Week shoot the other day, and we saw Ed Miles. And I mean, he's just in khakis and a Henley shirt. But
intimidate you, won't he?
He looks like a linebacker. but he's a fantastic coach in his ability to motivate the guys and be stern, but not be completely over the top about it. I think if we've learned anything in these last 2 weeks is we don't really know the teams until you see them.
Yeah.
And Jeff is one of those teams. Last year, they didn't win a game, and you see them, and here they are. Williamsburg is another team. You don't expect them to compete with a Xavier team that last year, Xavier's in 4A, Williamsburg is in 2A. That's a 2-class difference, and Williamsburg beats them because they have some guys. I want to shout out Chelsea Brown, by the way, who went to a Williamsburg practice last week and says,
she told us.
Holy moly, she knew. She knew that Raider team could really compete, and Coach Ritchie is going to be real happy about that one.
Another thing that stands out to Jeff, to me, is you saw him walking around yesterday. What did they have in their hands?
Jugs of water, right?
Gallon jugs of water, because Ed Miles said, hey, it's going to be hot through this. We're going to drink a gallon of water every day. Some kids would just say, yeah, right.
Yeah, why not?
They actually walked around school with their gallon of water.
That's a real cerebral guy, right?
That is how they are buying in. It's fun to watch.
It's a lot of fun to watch. Man, there's so much good high school football. It's the Jeff thing is going to be fun to watch because there will still be naysayers and doubters.
Oh, there is right now.
Yeah.
Oh, they haven't played anybody yet.
Who they played.
Yeah.
And I think that's only going to help Ed Miles and that
it motivates
team. The motivation.
Yeah.
You're a high school kid. Look, you have to balance with high school football. You have social media and you see all the people hating on you, or when you're winning, the people loving on you. Kirk Ferentz always says this with his team. Yeah. Don't look at social media. Don't see people loving you. Don't see people hating you. But I think there are some high school kids that use a little bit of that social media as motivation.
Remember yesterday, Ish, our Athlete of the Week, Ish, we interviewed him, and I said, I said, what motivated you during this 26-game losing streak to keep going? And he said, other people saying, where are you going to transfer now? Well, you know, if you transfer now, you can win some games finally. And that motivated him and his teammates, because the West Side, they have a lot of pride. They like to say the West Side is the best side, and they're bringing the pride back right now.
They absolutely are. And we are, I'd like to think we're bringing the pride back to Friday Night Lights. That's a pro transition right there. How about your favorite moment, favorite play from this last week that you saw from on the video or you shot yourself?
Well, in the Central City game, I like, and it's going to surprise you, but I like that Springville came out and tried something different. So they take all the wide receivers and the entire team. It's 8-man football. They're all spread wide. The only one there is the quarterback in the center. They had to try to do some different things to stay in the game, and they were able to do it.
So I gotta find these guys' names. Micah Lang Michael Lang is number 9 on Williamsburg. He had that big sack, and he was so hyped up, and you can tell like that was a huge moment for him. And the defensive plays we saw in that Xavier Williamsburg game really stood out to me. Both of those teams really swarmed to the ball.
Yeah.
And it's not all about touchdowns. A lot of times you see touchdowns, but the line play is such a big factor with these teams. And Dwayne Schulte and Kurt Ritchie will be the first two guys to tell you that. It's all about what you do up front. And sometimes it's nice to see those defensive linemen get the love they deserve.
One team not to sleep on also is Linmar. They're off to a 2-0 start with 2 blowouts. They looked really good tonight against Wash. They've got a complete team. I mean, they can run the football. Their quarterback actually got hurt. I don't know how serious it is, but he had to come out of the game. He can really throw it, but when they did, they were able to run the ball without a problem with 2 really good running backs.
Yeah, Lamar's been up and down, but this year they have.
They're a
their-
playoff
their-
team this year.
Keaton,
Yeah.
I forgot lost his name, but Keaton Roscoff.
Yeah, and he
is their
actually got
tight-
hurt tonight too. So hopefully,
Yeah,
it's
we're
not
hoping
bad.
he's
Yeah.
okay. But
Yeah.
to do it against a Wash team with a really good coach in Mo Blue shows you like this is it's not nothing for Limar. They've got a long way to go. But you saw them. I mean, they can.
Yeah,
really
I think
play.
they can be a playoff team. They have that kind of talent.
Final score of that game? I forgot.
I don't have it in front of me right now. I'd have to look at it. They won big. So we're going to do this again next week.
Yeah, why not?
We'll see you here at the OT once again. We're going to do the OT every week at about 10.